Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci became the world's most famous scientist and physician during the COVID-19 crisis. During his career, he's worked with 7 U.S. presidents, including Donald Trump and Joe Biden, before retiring in 2022 at the age of 82. Born in Brooklyn in December 1940, Anthony Fauci is of Italian extraction, and he was educated by the Jesuits in New York. His long career has spanned the treatment of many high-profile viruses. Professor Fauci is in Dublin to receive the Stern Medal, an award for his outstanding contribution to medicine from the Royal College of Physicians in Ireland. And earlier today, I met him, and I asked him to reflect on his time as America's top doctor during COVID.
It was such a charged time and a lot of emotions and people frightened and evolving information. It was not static. Every week, every month, we learned something new that sometimes would contradict what we learned in the past. And I found, particularly given the position I was in of having to be the spokesperson to the American public, and indirectly because everyone was watching, to a lot of the world, that it's very important that you're very precise in your message.
How did you deal with all the misinformation and disinformation that was everywhere during COVID? Was that very challenging?
It was quite challenging and really quite difficult because there's misinformation, which sometimes you can understand because people just get the facts wrong. But there was also disinformation, which is the deliberate propagation of false information. When the disinformation could get people to do or not do things that would be detrimental to their health, then that's a very serious thing. So people like myself in the public health arena and the scientific arena who have the responsibility to communicate with the public, it makes it even more compelling to continue to give important, correct information based on data, based on evidence, and based on facts.
So how difficult was it when your president spread misinformation and incorrect information?
Well, to say the least, it was very difficult because I have always had and continue to have a great deal of respect for the office of the presidency of the United States. It so happened that with President Trump, he was saying things that were not correct when I was telling the American public to be careful because we were having an acceleration of cases, which were a fact. And he was saying it was going to go away like magic and don't worry about it, it's going to be fine. And then when that was clear that that wasn't going to happen, he was promoting therapies that had no basis in fact, like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. So it was very tough for me because I did not take pleasure in contradicting the president of the United States. But I had to do it. I had to do it to preserve my own personal integrity, but I have a responsibility to the American public.
How difficult was that time?
It led to a great deal of hostility against me on the part of extremist elements in the United States population. I'm not talking about Republican, Democrat, because it's good to have a diversity of opinions politically, but this was not diversity. This was divisiveness. They were against me because they were attacking me, both verbally and sometimes threatening physically, which is something that should never, ever happen in the arena of public health, that people who disagree with you essentially harass and attack not only you, but your entire family.
You had threats, you had death threats, you now have constant security with you. What impact has that had both on you personally and on your family?
Well, it's changed my life. Because there's no privacy anymore. There's no flexibility in going where you want to go and doing what you want to do. It always got to be planned. There can be very little spontaneity because you have to have people in advance. If you want to go someplace, then they have to go and make sure it's safe. The thing about it that is even more disturbing to me is that, I could take the attacks on me because it's, almost a part of the job. But my children shouldn't have to go through that. And that's very tough.
How worrying is it that public health was weaponized for political gain?
I'm very concerned about what I refer to as the normalization of untruths, where there's so much lying going on that the general public gets worn out by it and they just accept it. And once you accept the normalization of untruth and don't push back vigorously against it, that erodes the fundamental elements of democracy. Because when you don't have truth, and truth means nothing, that's when you get the kind of insidious erosion of the foundations of the social order. So that really worries me. It doubly worries me because when it has to do with public health, there are people who are not getting interventions of treatment and prevention because of the misinformation that goes on. So you have what would have been an avoidable loss of life because of misinformation about vaccines. That's terrible.
When you reflect now, where do you think the COVID-19 virus came from? Where did it originate?
I don't know. It's still unknown and unclear. There have been a number of evolutionary virologists who are no skin in the game. They're people that don't have an agenda, and they're from all over the world. They've looked at the information and they feel it is more likely than not definitive, but highly likely that it was a natural spillover from an animal reservoir in the market in Wuhan to then infect the person and spread. The other possibility is that it was a lab leak, that people were working on it in the lab. The only issue is there's no evidence for that at all.
We're about to have COVID inquiries here. Do you think they serve a useful purpose or not?
Well, it depends on what you mean by an inquiry. So if you're doing it to strengthen your capability of responding more appropriately and learning from the lessons, because no one does things perfectly. So if you could learn from the lessons of what you experience so that you prepare yourself better for the possibility and, in fact, the likelihood that sometime in the future we're going to have another pandemic outbreak. If, however, an inquiry is politically motivated to try and put blame on someone appropriately or inappropriately, I don't think that is a good idea.
Are you concerned about Donald Trump becoming president once again?
You know, I can't comment about political issues because that becomes a soundbite, and I don't want to do that. I think that I'll hold off on that and say that my interaction with him is public. I already know what the interaction is, so you can imagine yourself what my feelings are.
What's been the proudest moment in your career for you?
One of the most that I'm proud of is, well, two of them relate to HIV/AIDS. One was to lead the institute that, in collaboration with the pharmaceutical companies, was responsible for developing a whole menu of drugs that have now completely transformed the lives of persons with HIV from an almost certain death sentence to right now having people leading almost a normal lifespan. The other thing is more of a policy issue that I had the privilege and the opportunity, together with President George W. Bush, to develop what's called the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR. So the president asked me to go to Africa and put together a program because he felt clearly that he felt a moral obligation that people should not die from a preventable and treatable disease because they didn't have access to therapy and prevention and because of where they happen to live. So we put together the program of PEPFAR, and now we know 20 years later, it's saved 25 million lives. So that's something that I'm rather proud of.
Dr. Fauci, thank you very much for speaking to me today, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you so much. It's good to be with you.